Damascus, Syria, January 18th, 1965, 3:47 in the afternoon. In a third-floor apartment at 12 Rue George Haddad in the Al-Malki district, a man sits hunched over a radio transmitter. His fingers move across the Morse key with practiced precision. The shutters are drawn. The room is dark except for the amber glow of the vacuum tubes. For 4 years, this man has operated from this room. For 4 years, he has sent his secrets west, across the Golan Heights, into the hills of Galilee, to a listening post in northern Israel. His real name is Eli Cohen, but no one in Damascus knows that. To the Syrian Minister of Defense, sitting not 3 blocks away, he is Kamel Amin Thaabet, a wealthy Argentine businessman, a patriot, a friend. To the Ba'ath Party elite, he is a charming benefactor who throws lavish parties where the wine flows and the secrets spill. To Syrian military commanders, he is a trusted advisor who has been granted security clearance to tour fortifications along the Golan Heights. He is the most successful spy Israel has ever placed, and in exactly 4 minutes, he will be caught. Outside, 3 unmarked sedans pull silently to the curb. Syrian counterintelligence agents step onto the street. They have spent the last 72 hours triangulating radio signals emanating from this district. They have narrowed it down to this building, this floor, this door. They draw their weapons. Eli Cohen presses the key one final time. Dot, dash, dash, dot. He does not hear them coming up the stairs. The door explodes inward. How did a man, born in Alexandria, Egypt, the son of a humble rabbi, come to penetrate the inner sanctum of Israel's most dangerous enemy? How did he fool generals, ministers, and an entire nation for 4 years? And why, despite his unprecedented success, did his masters in Tel Aviv continue to push him until the inevitable, catastrophic end? This is the story of Eli Cohen, the spy who got too close. The man who was sacrificed on the altar of intelligence. To understand his fall, we must go back to the beginning. We must go back to the architecture of the lie. Eli Cohen was born on December 26, 1924 in Alexandria, Egypt, into a Sephardic Jewish family. His father, Shaul Cohen, was a rabbi and a Talmudic scholar. His mother, Sophie, raised 8 children in a cramped apartment in the Jewish quarter. Eli was the 3rd son, quiet, studious, and fiercely patriotic. But his patriotism was not for Egypt. In the 1940s, as the State of Israel fought for its existence, young Jews across the Middle East were drawn into a shadow war. In Egypt, Eli Cohen joined a Zionist underground network. His job was small, delivering messages, recruiting sympathizers, gathering intelligence on British and Egyptian troop movements. But it was enough. In 1956, after the Suez Crisis, Egypt's President Gamal Abdel Nasser expelled thousands of Jews. Eli Cohen, now 31 years old, arrived in Israel with nothing. No money, no prospects, no future. But he had a skill. He could disappear into a crowd. He could speak fluent Arabic, Egyptian, Syrian, and Lebanese dialects. He could charm, deceive, and manipulate. And he was willing to do what others would not. In 1960, Eli Cohen walked into a small office building in Tel Aviv at 20 Hamasker Street. This was the headquarters of Amman, Israel's military intelligence directorate. He requested a meeting. He wanted to be a spy. The man who interviewed him was Lieutenant Colonel Yehuda Ben-Zur, head of Unit 188, a secret division responsible for planting deep cover agents in hostile Arab nations. Ben-Zur was skeptical. Cohen was 36 years old, ancient by espionage standards. He had a wife, Nadia, and 2 young children. He had no military training. He had failed in business. But Ben-Zur saw something else. He saw a man who could blend in, a man who understood the Arab world, not as an outsider, but as someone who had lived it, a man who was desperate enough, hungry enough, to risk everything. Ben-Zur made a decision. He told Eli Cohen to go home, and he told him to forget his real name. The problem Israel faced in 1960 was existential. Syria, along its northeastern border, was not just hostile, it was apocalyptic in its hatred. Syrian artillery, positioned on the Golan Heights, rained shells onto Israeli farming settlements below. Syrian leaders spoke openly of annihilation. And behind Syria stood the Soviet Union, pouring weapons and advisors into Damascus. Israel needed to know what Syria was planning. They needed to know where the fortifications were, where the tanks were hidden, where the command bunkers were built. They needed to know the names of the commanders, their strategies, their weaknesses. They needed someone inside, not a tourist who could take a few photographs, not a diplomat who could eavesdrop at cocktail parties. They needed a ghost, someone who could live a double life for years. Someone who could become Syrian. Eli Cohen was that man, but first, they had to build him. The legend, the cover story, was everything. In espionage, a legend is not a fairy tale. It is a second life, constructed with such meticulous detail that it can withstand interrogation, background checks, and the scrutiny of suspicious neighbors. A legend must have a past, a childhood, a family, a trail of records, school diplomas, business licenses, passport stamps that stretches back years. Eli Cohen's legend was built in Argentina. In early 1961, Cohen was sent to Buenos Aires under his real name, his mission to become someone else. Buenos Aires in 1961 was home to over 300,000 Arabs, most of them Syrian and Lebanese Christians who had emigrated decades earlier. These communities were insular, clannish, and deeply connected to the old country. They sent money back home. They arranged marriages. They attended the same churches and social clubs. And they were exactly the cover Eli Cohen needed. For 6 months, Cohen lived among them. He rented a small apartment on Avenida Corrientes. He joined the Syrian Argentine Association, a social club on Calle Maipú. He befriended wealthy Syrian expatriates. He attended their parties. He spoke Arabic. He played backgammon. He complained about Israeli aggression. He donated money to Palestinian causes. He became Kamel Amin Thaabet. The details of the legend were precise. Kamel Amin Thaabet was born in Beirut in 1930 to a Syrian father and a Lebanese mother. His family emigrated to Argentina in 1946. He had studied at the University of Buenos Aires. He had run a successful import-export business. He was unmarried. He was wealthy. He was a patriot who longed to return to Syria and contribute to the Arab cause. Every detail was documented. Israeli forgers in Tel Aviv created a birth certificate from Beirut. They created school records. They created business contracts, letters of recommendation, and bank statements. They even created photographs, doctored images of a young Kamel at family gatherings, at his graduation, on vacation in Mar del Plata. The past was constructed, but the performance, that was Eli Cohen's alone. In September 1961, Kamel Amin Thaabet arrived in Damascus. He carried 2 suitcases. One held expensive suits, Swiss watches, and French cologne. The other held $30,000 in cash, provided by Mossad to establish his credibility. He checked into the Hotel Semiramis on My Saloon Street, a luxury hotel frequented by foreign businessmen and Arab elites. He tipped generously. He ordered champagne. He made friends with the concierge. Within a week, he had an apartment. Within a month, he had invitations to parties. Within 3 months, he had powerful friends. The tradecraft Cohen employed was not the gadgetry of spy fiction. It was human intelligence, human in its purest form. He attended parties thrown by Syrian military officers and Ba'ath Party officials. He listened, he flattered, he laughed at their jokes. He asked questions that seemed innocent, questions about their work, their frustrations, their ambitions. He offered business opportunities. He loaned money. He hosted dinners at his own apartment, where the liquor was expensive and the conversation was loose. And slowly, methodically, he collected secrets. One of Cohen's earliest triumphs came through a man named Amin al-Hafez. In 1962, al-Hafez was the Syrian military attaché in Buenos Aires, a man Cohen had befriended during his time in Argentina. When al-Hafez was recalled to Damascus and promoted to a senior military role, Cohen renewed the friendship. He congratulated him. He offered his services. He became a confidant. In 1963, Amin al-Hafez led a military coup and became the president of Syria. Eli Cohen was now friends with the head of state. Cohen's apartment at 12 Rue George Haddad became a nerve center. He installed a hidden radio transmitter in a false panel in his bedroom closet. The device was a Morse code set, compact and powerful. capable of reaching Israeli listening posts 150 kilometers away. Every few nights, after midnight, Cohen would activate the transmitter. He would tap out his reports in code, names of officers, troop movements, artillery placements, political gossip. The intelligence was extraordinary. He reported on Soviet weapons shipments arriving at the port of Latakia. He provided the names and positions of Syrian Air Force commanders. He detailed the construction of underground bunkers along the Golan Heights. And then, in 1963, he pulled off his greatest coup. Cohen convinced Syrian military officials to grant him a tour of the Golan Heights. His cover story was brilliant. He claimed he wanted to invest in agricultural projects in the newly fortified region. He wanted to see the land, to meet the commanders, to understand the logistics. The Syrians agreed. In February 1963, Eli Cohen was driven to the front lines. He was shown bunkers, trenches, artillery positions, tank depots. He met with the commanding officer of the Golan fortifications, a man named Colonel Salim Hatoum. Cohen asked questions. He took mental notes. He even offered a piece of advice: plant eucalyptus trees around the fortifications to provide shade for the soldiers. The Syrians loved the idea. They planted the trees, and when the Six-Day War came in 1967, Israeli pilots used those trees as targeting markers. They bombed the fortifications with devastating accuracy. Eli Cohen's suggestion had sealed Syria's fate, but there was a cost to Cohen's success. The intelligence he provided was so valuable that his handlers in Tel Aviv became greedy. They pushed him to transmit more frequently. They demanded more details, more names, more reports. Cohen protested. He warned that frequent radio transmissions were dangerous. Syrian counterintelligence was sophisticated, trained by the Soviets. They had radio direction finding equipment. They could triangulate signals, but Tel Aviv insisted. They told him the war was coming. They told him the intelligence was critical. They told him to keep transmitting. Cohen obeyed. It was a fatal miscalculation. By late 1964, Syrian intelligence knew there was a spy in Damascus. They didn't know who, they didn't know where, but they knew someone was transmitting military secrets to Israel. The signals were being picked up by Soviet radio intercept stations. The frequency was identified. The general location, the al-Malki district, was narrowed down. A special counterintelligence unit was formed. For weeks, they drove through the district with mobile direction finding equipment. They listened, they waited, they triangulated. And then, on January 18, 1965, at 3:43 in the afternoon, they pinpointed the signal. It was coming from 12 Rue George Haddad, 3rd floor. Eli Cohen was at his transmitter when they came. He was mid-message, tapping out details of a high-level Ba'ath Party meeting he had attended the night before. He did not hear the agents in the stairwell. He did not hear them position themselves outside his door. At 3:51 p.m., they broke through. Cohen reached for the transmitter, trying to destroy it, but he was too late. They pinned him to the floor. They found the codebook. They found the cipher pads. They found letters from his Mossad handlers hidden in a false bottom of his suitcase. The evidence was overwhelming. Kamel Amin Thaabet, the wealthy businessman, the patriot, the friend, did not exist. The man on the floor was Eli Cohen, an Israeli spy. The interrogation lasted 4 months. Cohen was held in a basement cell at the Syrian Military Intelligence Headquarters on Al-Jala Street. He was tortured, beaten, burned, deprived of sleep. The Syrians wanted names. They wanted to know how deep the network went. They wanted to know who else in Damascus was working for Israel. Cohen gave them nothing. He admitted his identity, he admitted his mission, but he protected his sources. He invented cover stories to explain how he had obtained certain pieces of intelligence. He took the blame alone. In March 1965, the Syrian government announced his capture publicly. They paraded him on state television. They called him a traitor, a Zionist infiltrator, a criminal. They scheduled his trial for May. The trial was a spectacle. It was held in a military courtroom, packed with journalists, government officials, and jeering crowds. Cohen stood in the dock, thin and bruised, flanked by armed guards. The prosecutor presented the evidence: the transmitter, the code books, the transcripts of his messages. The defense attorney, appointed by the state, offered no real defense. The verdict was predetermined. On May 8, 1965, Eli Cohen was found guilty of espionage and treason. The sentence? Death by hanging. Israel tried to save him. Prime Minister Levi Eshkol reached out to world leaders, the Pope, the President of France, the Secretary General of the United Nations. Nadia Cohen, Eli's wife, pleaded publicly for mercy. She wrote letters. She held press conferences. She begged the Syrians to spare her husband's life. The Syrians refused. On May 18, 1965, at 3:35 in the morning, Eli Cohen was taken from his cell. He was driven to Martyrs Square in central Damascus. A scaffold had been erected overnight. Thousands of Syrians filled the square, chanting, cheering. Searchlights illuminated the platform. Cohen was calm. He asked to write a final letter to his wife. The guards allowed it. He wrote, "My darling Nadia, I am writing these last words to you in the hope that you will always remain united and will bring up our children as Jews and Israelis. Inform our children that I love them and died for my homeland. Kiss them all for me." At 3:41 a.m., he was led up the scaffold. A noose was placed around his neck. He was asked if he had any final words. He looked out at the crowd and said, in Arabic, "I am not afraid." The trap door opened. Eli Cohen was dead. But the story did not end there. The Syrians left his body hanging in Martyrs Square for 6 hours. Thousands filed past to see the corpse of the Israeli spy. Photographs were taken. Newspapers printed them on the front page. Cohen's body was buried in an unmarked grave. For decades, Israel negotiated for its return. For decades, Syria refused. It was not until 2018, 53 years after his death, that Syria finally allowed a Jewish rabbi to conduct a graveside service. Cohen's body remains in Damascus. The intelligence Eli Cohen provided changed the course of history. In June 1967, just 2 years after his death, Israel launched the Six-Day War. Israeli forces stormed the Golan Heights. The battle was swift and decisive. Syrian fortifications, the ones Cohen had toured, the ones he had marked with eucalyptus trees, were obliterated. Israeli commanders later admitted they had maps of every Syrian position. They knew where every bunker, every trench, every command post was located. They knew because Eli Cohen had told them. Nadia Cohen never remarried. She raised her 3 children alone, Sophie, Irit, and Shaul, named after his grandfather. She kept Eli's letters, his photographs, his memory. She fought the Israeli government for recognition, for compensation, for acknowledgement of what her husband had sacrificed. In 2005, on the 40th anniversary of his death, Israel posthumously awarded Eli Cohen the rank of colonel. A statue was erected in his honor in the town of Herzliya. His story was declassified, studied, memorialized. But Nadia Cohen said it best in an interview years later. They used him, they loved him, and they killed him. Eli Cohen's story raises a question that haunts every intelligence agency. How far is too far? How much risk is acceptable when the stakes are national survival? Was Cohen a hero who gave everything for his country? Or was he a pawn, sacrificed by handlers who pushed him beyond the limits of safety? The Mossad has never answered that question publicly. But every year, on May 18th, at the Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv, a ceremony is held. A plaque is unveiled. The names of fallen agents are read aloud. And the first name on the list is always the same. Eli Cohen, the spy who fooled a nation. The man who got too close. What do you think? Was Eli Cohen a hero, or was his sacrifice unnecessary? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.